Hi cloud lovers, today we're going to be talking about RBAC rules, assignment for external users, and the importance of list privileges. So we're going to do two things. The first thing we're going to do is invite an external user. This will be our guest user, and then after we invite the user and the user accepts the invitation, we're going to assign a role to this user. So let's start. Now we're going to add a user using this email, cloudjourney0@gmail.com. So we're going to paste that in our notepad and go on to adding the user. So we go to Microsoft Enter ID, click the drop down for manage, go to users. You can see I have 0 users, but let's add a guest user anyway. So new user, invite an external user. So remember that email we saw, we're going to paste it here. Let's copy it. Paste it, display name. Let's do Cloud Pi. Invitation message. Invitation message will be you are invited to join our Azure environment as a guest user for our RBAC configuration testing. Okay, CC if you want to add anybody else, see the email. I think that's fine. So now we're going to review and invite. User invitation in progress. Okay, successfully invited user. Now we're going to have to accept this invitation as Cloud Pi, and it's only after we accept the invitation that I will be able to assign a role to Cloud Pi. So let's go ahead and accept that invitation. Okay, so we can see Cloud Pi has successfully been invited as a guest user into attendance because user type shows guest. So we've accomplished step 1, which is to invite Cloud Pi as an external user. And so the next step is to assign an RBAC role to Cloud Pi. Basically, in this Microsoft Entra ID environment, there are 2 kinds of roles. Let's go back to home, Microsoft Entra ID, roles and administrators. So we can see if we've ever heard of roles like global administrator role and AI administrator, application administrator, these roles are different from the RBAC roles or the Azure built-in roles. These roles, administrative roles, are used for granting access to maybe certain actions that you want to perform in your environment. A good example would be if you have an on-premises Active Directory environment and you're trying to connect it to your Entra ID cloud environment. There are some actions like, let's say you want to edit some usernames, or maybe you want to run some certain scripts in that environment. You cannot do some actions unless you're a global administrator or maybe an authentication administrator. So that is what administrative rules are for. But that's not what we're talking about here today. We're going to talk about RBAC rules. These rules apply to resources, VM, storage in our Azure environment. So we're going to search for resource groups. We want this rule to only apply to a certain resource group. We can make the role a higher level one. That means it applies to a lot of resource groups instead of just a particular resource group, but we want it to apply to only one resource group. So we're going to search for resource group. Okay, so it has loaded. So we want to assign an owner role to Cloud Pi in this RG resource group. So we're talking about 3 main RBAC roles today: the owner role, the contributor role, and the reader role. So basically, an owner role grants full access, will grant Cloud Pi full access to all resources in this resource group. CloudPy will have access to all those resources. He'll be able to manage them, set access controls, and the like. And he can also assign roles to other users only within this resource group. But then if we assign a contributor role to CloudPy, CloudPy will be able to manage resources, yes, but he will not be able to assign roles to other users for this resource group. And lastly, we have the reader role. This will allow users to only view the resources. They won't be able to make any modifications to it at all. So now the next step is to go to access control, IAM. Okay, add role assignments. Okay, so role. So which role are we going to add to CloudPy? Let's try the contributor role. Okay, that's wrong. Contributor. So we're not seeing anything under job function roles. So we're going to go over to privilege administrator role. Okay, so under privilege administrator roles, we can select contributor role and next. So this is a user. We want to assign this role to a user. So we need to select members. Let's do CloudPy. Okay, select. Okay, description, we don't need to add that. Next. Wait, previous. Next. Okay, contributor role. There are certain times that conditions will not be grayed out. If we are assigning an owner role, perhaps you'll see options like, should this owner have unlimited access to assign roles to anybody, or should this owner have certain limits? But since this is a contributor role that cannot even assign roles to other users in the first place, this conditions is grayed out. So if you press next, we're already at review plus assign. So let's review and assign this role. So yay, added role assignment. So CloudPy was successfully added as a contributor for this. And the reason why least privilege, the principle of least privilege is even important is because in a situation like this where CloudPy maybe had access to so many different resource groups, maybe he was the owner in so many different resource groups, that gives CloudPy too much power, too much access to do harm. Maybe if he's an insider threat, he can do harm. So if CloudPy does not need to have access to other resource groups, why should he? This is the question that the principle of least privilege answers. CloudPy only needs access to this resource group, R0RG. So why should he have access to CKARG? So the principle of least privilege protects an environment, maybe a corporate environment or just a technical environment as a whole, from risks that users can impose. Do you understand? So that's what the principle of least privilege is about, and that is why it is important to know how to assign roles in this Microsoft Entra environment. Know how to assign roles, and at times roles don't even need to be assigned forever. It can be a temporary assignment to better protect your environment. So thank you very much. I hope you now know the difference between administrative roles and RBAC or built-in roles, and also the principle of least privilege.